The airport gate was filled with quiet noise and tired movement as travelers waited with bags beside their feet and eyes fixed on screens. Maya sat alone near the window seat holding her small backpack close as if it was something precious. She was 12 years old but carried herself with a calm far older than her age. Her dark hair was tied back neatly and her jacket rested folded on her lap. She looked around slowly, taking in the voices and footsteps and the distant announcements. Flying always made her nervous, but today she reminded herself to stay steady. Her father had told her this trip mattered and she believed him. She opened her book and tried to lose herself in the story. Across the aisle, a woman sat stiff and uncomfortable, shifting again and again in her seat. Her eyes kept moving toward Maya, then away, then back again. Each look carried something sharp and cold that had nothing to do with the flight. The woman crossed her arms and sighed loudly, as if the space around her offended her. She muttered under her breath words that made nearby passengers uneasy. A man beside her avoided eye contact, choosing silence over involvement. The woman leaned forward, tapping her foot, as if waiting for a moment. That moment came when a flight attendant walked past checking boarding passes. The woman stood suddenly, pointing toward Maya with a stiff finger. Her voice rose above the gate noise, demanding attention and control. She claimed the seat was wrong and insisted the girl should not be sitting there. Her tone was firm and impatient, as if this was a problem meant to be fixed instantly. The flight attendant paused, taken by surprise, but kept a calm posture. She explained gently that the seat was assigned correctly, and everything was in order. The woman shook her head, refusing to accept the answer. Nearby travelers stopped pretending not to listen and turned their heads. Maya looked up slowly, her heart beating faster as faces focused on her. She checked her boarding pass again, even though she already knew it was right. Her hands trembled slightly, but she stayed seated, remembering her father's voice. He had always told her to stay respectful, even when others were not. She felt small under the weight of the attention and confusion. She wondered what she had done wrong, though deep inside she knew the answer. The noise around her faded into a dull hum. She swallowed and waited, hoping someone would help. A few rows back, her father watched the scene unfold without moving at first. David was tall and quiet, with calm eyes trained to notice details others missed. He had spent years learning when to act and when to wait. He saw the way the woman spoke and the way Maya shrank into herself. His jaw tightened, but his face stayed controlled. He closed his laptop slowly, placing it into his bag. This was no longer just a misunderstanding to observe. He rose from his seat with purpose and stepped forward. The woman turned toward him, ready to argue again, her frustration growing. She did not know who he was or what he carried with him. All she saw was another person standing in her way. David's presence was steady and calm, cutting through the tension. Maya felt relief when she saw him near her. The gate seemed to fall quiet as eyes shifted between them. Something important was about to happen. The woman had no idea that the moment she created was about to change everything. David stepped closer to the gate desk with slow, careful movement that showed control rather than anger. His voice stayed low but firm as he asked what the problem was. The woman turned sharply toward him, clearly irritated by being questioned. She repeated her demand, saying the seat was wrong and the girl should be moved. Her tone carried authority she believed she owned. The flight attendant tried again to explain that the seat matched the boarding pass. David listened without interrupting, watching the woman more than the words. People nearby leaned forward, sensing the tension deepen. Maya kept her eyes on her hands, trying not to cry. She could feel her face growing warm as whispers passed around her. She had never been spoken about like this in public before. Her mind searched for comfort and landed on memories of her father's calm advice. She breathed slowly like he had taught her. Even so, the weight of judgment pressed on her shoulders. She felt exposed, as if the whole room had turned against her. David noticed and moved closer to her seat. The woman crossed her arms and laughed without humor. She claimed she paid good money and deserved better treatment. She insisted rules were being ignored and demanded a supervisor. Her voice rose again, sharper and louder. Some passengers looked away while others watched closely. A mother nearby pulled her child closer, sensing the discomfort. The flight attendant called for a manager, trying to keep the peace. David placed himself slightly in front of Maya, shielding her presence. The manager arrived with a practiced smile and asked what was happening. The woman spoke quickly, painting herself as the victim of poor service. She pointed toward Maya again, making the moment even heavier. The manager checked the system and confirmed the seat was correct. Nothing had been done wrong, and the girl had every right to be there. The woman scoffed, shaking her head in disbelief. She refused to sit down, claiming the decision was unacceptable. The crowd began to murmur with quiet concern. David finally spoke again, his voice calm but clear enough to carry. He explained that the girl was his daughter and had followed every rule. He asked politely for respect and fairness. The woman stared at him, then at Maya, then back again. Her expression shifted between annoyance and disbelief. She muttered that this situation made her uncomfortable. David did not react. Instead, he stood steady and composed. His calm seemed to unsettle her more than anger would have. Maya looked up at her father, feeling strength return slowly. She trusted him completely and knew he would not let harm come to her. Her breathing steadied as she focused on his presence. The gate felt quieter now as people waited for what would happen next. Some passengers nodded subtly in support. Others watched the woman with growing impatience. The manager reiterated that the matter was closed. Yet the woman still refused to let it go. Security was mentioned quietly by the flight attendant. The word alone shifted the air in the gate. The woman stiffened, suddenly realizing attention had gone too far. David remained calm, hands visible, posture relaxed. He had dealt with tense moments before and knew how they ended. The manager asked everyone to lower their voices. Passengers began checking phones again, though eyes still lingered. Something about David suggested this story was not finished. The woman finally paused her complaints, studying David more closely. She seemed to notice his confidence and lack of fear. Her voice lowered as she asked who he thought he was. David met her eyes without challenge or threat. He said only that he was a father protecting his child. Those words landed heavier than any argument. The gate was silent enough to hear distant announcements. Maya felt pride swell quietly inside her chest. What the woman did not know was that David carried more than calm words. Years of responsibility rested unseen beneath his jacket. He had hoped never to use authority in a place meant for travel and peace. But he was prepared if the situation demanded clarity. As the manager returned to the desk and security approached slowly, the woman folded her arms again, uncertain for the first time. The truth waited just beneath the surface, and the next moment would bring it into the open. The gate area felt heavier as security officers approached with slow, measured steps. Their presence alone caused conversations to stop and eyes to lift again. The woman noticed them and straightened her coat, trying to regain control. Her confidence faded slightly, though she tried to hide it behind crossed arms. David remained still with a calm posture that showed no fear or urgency. He placed one hand gently on the back of Maya's seat. That simple gesture grounded her and eased the tightness in her chest. She looked up at him and felt safe again. One of the security officers asked what was happening in a steady voice. The woman spoke first again, explaining her side with sharp, clipped words. She claimed disorder and unfair treatment, repeating her earlier complaints. The officer listened without reaction, then turned to the manager. The manager calmly explained the seating had been confirmed and correct. No rules had been broken and no changes were required. Murmurs spread again among passengers who sensed the truth was clear. The woman shifted her weight, sensing control slipping away. David finally reached into his jacket slowly and carefully. The movement caught the attention of everyone nearby. Maya felt a brief moment of worry until she saw his calm expression. He removed a small leather holder and held it at chest level. He did not raise his voice or posture. He simply spoke with quiet authority that carried easily. He said he hoped this would bring clarity to the situation. The officer leaned closer to see. The badge inside reflected the overhead lights clearly. The letters were visible and unmistakable to those who knew their meaning. The officer stiffened slightly and nodded with immediate understanding. The manager's expression changed as well, moving from concern to respect. The woman froze mid-breath, staring at the badge in disbelief. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. The gate felt silent, as if time itself paused. Maya watched the woman's face change completely. The officer stepped back, respectfully addressing David with a softer tone. He asked if there was anything else needed to resolve the issue. David shook his head calmly and lowered the badge. He said only that his daughter deserved the same respect as anyone else. Those words echoed louder than any raised voice earlier. The woman's face flushed as eyes from all directions turned toward her. She avoided eye contact for the first time since the conflict began. Her earlier confidence had vanished completely. Passengers whispered quietly now, but with a different energy. Some nodded in approval, while others looked uncomfortable. A woman nearby smiled gently at Maya, offering silent support. Maya felt a warmth rise inside her chest, replacing fear. She sat taller now, her shoulders no longer curled inward. David returned the badge to his jacket without ceremony. He placed his full attention back on Maya. The storm he anticipated had passed. The manager thanked David quietly and assured him the matter was closed. Security stepped back, returning to their positions. The gate slowly returned to its earlier rhythm. Screens flickered with boarding updates and distant announcements resumed. The woman remained standing for a moment, unsure of what to do. She looked around, realizing the attention was no longer in her favor. Finally she sat down, stiff and silent. No one spoke to her. Maya let out a slow breath she did not know she was holding. Her heart still beat fast, but no longer with fear. She felt pride not just in her father, but in herself. She had stayed calm and strong, even when it was hard. David leaned down slightly and whispered reassurance. She nodded and smiled softly back at him. The gate no longer felt hostile or heavy. It felt fair again. Yet the experience left a quiet mark on everyone who witnessed it. The moment revealed truths many preferred not to face. Some passengers reflected silently on what they had seen. Others simply felt relief that calm had returned. The woman stayed quiet, staring straight ahead. The power she once believed she held was gone. David sat back down beside Maya, composed and steady. What mattered now was moving forward together. Boarding was delayed slightly, and the waiting time stretched longer than expected. People settled back into their seats, carrying quiet thoughts from what had happened. Maya stared out the large window, watching planes move slowly across the runway. Her reflection stared back at her, older, somehow stronger than before. David sat beside her, silent, but aware of every breath she took. He knew moments like this shaped a child in ways words never could. He wanted to speak, but chose silence to let her process everything. The gate no longer felt loud, but it felt changed. The woman across the aisle stayed still, staring straight ahead. Her hands rested tightly in her lap and her shoulders remained stiff. She avoided looking at anyone, especially Maya and David. The authority she tried to claim earlier had disappeared completely. Passengers nearby no longer watched her with fear, but with distance. Some moments leave no room for excuses, only reflection. She shifted once, as if uncomfortable with her own thoughts. Silence pressed heavier on her than any response could. A man a few seats away leaned toward David quietly. He thanked him for handling the situation with calm and dignity. David nodded politely, offering no explanation or pride. He did not want attention or praise. He only wanted his daughter safe and respected. Maya overheard and felt warmth spread through her chest. She realized others had seen the truth, even if they stayed quiet earlier. That knowledge mattered more than applause. As boarding finally began, passengers lined up slowly. Maya stood and adjusted her backpack, feeling steadier than before. She walked beside her father, head held higher than earlier. The woman remained seated waiting for her group to be called. Their paths crossed briefly in the aisle. The woman looked down quickly, unable to meet Maya's eyes. Maya did not react with anger or pride. She simply continued forward. Inside the plane, the cabin lights glowed softly. Seats filled with quiet movement and stored bags. Maya took her seat by the window again. David sat beside her, relaxed but alert. As the plane prepared for departure, Maya felt excitement replace tension. She watched the ground crew move outside, fascinated by the calm order. The earlier chaos felt distant now. She felt safe again. During the flight, Maya thought deeply about what had happened. She understood now that strength was not loud or cruel. It was steady calm and knowing when to stand firm. She remembered how her father never raised his voice. How he let truth speak for itself. She wanted to carry that lesson with her forever. David noticed her quiet focus and smiled gently. No words were needed. When the plane landed and doors opened, the journey felt complete. Passengers exited with renewed energy and purpose. Some offered Maya kind smiles as they passed. She returned them softly, still holding on to the moment. The woman exited silently, keeping her distance. No confrontation followed, and none was needed. The lesson had already settled where it belonged. Maya stepped into the terminal feeling changed. David placed a hand on Maya's shoulder, guiding her forward. He told her quietly how proud he was of her strength. She smiled fully, then the weight finally lifting. What she faced that day would stay with her. But it would not define her by fear. It would define her by courage and calm. They walked together into the crowd, ready for whatever came next. The days after the trip stayed with Maya longer than she expected. She returned home with a quiet strength she had never felt before. School halls felt different, as if she walked with clearer purpose. She noticed how she carried herself straighter and spoke more calmly. Friends sensed the change and listened more closely when she talked. She did not tell the full story, only what mattered. That she learned how calm could be stronger than noise. And that respect was something worth standing for. David watched his daughter grow with careful pride. He never pushed her to talk about the moment. He knew some lessons settled best in silence. Instead, he showed her through actions patience and fairness. They shared quiet mornings and simple conversations. Each moment built trust deeper than before. He hoped she would remember not the conflict, but the way she stayed steady through it. At school, Maya noticed another girl being treated unfairly one afternoon. The room felt heavy and familiar in a way she recognized. Her heart beat faster, but she remembered her father's calm. She stepped forward with a gentle voice, not sharp or loud. Others turned to listen, just as they had at the airport. The situation softened quickly once truth entered the space. Maya felt something click inside her. She knew she had changed for the better. The memory of the woman from the airport faded slowly. Not with anger, but with understanding. Maya realized that fear often hides behind harsh words. That some people speak loudly because they are unsure inside. This thought helped her let go of any hurt. She no longer carried the weight of that day. It became a lesson instead of a wound. One she would carry forward with grace. David continued his work with renewed focus. The badge he carried was a tool, not a weapon. He believed authority mattered most when used carefully. That day at the airport reminded him why he chose his path. To protect without harm and guide without force. Seeing Maya learn that lesson made everything worth it. He knew the world would test her again. But he trusted her strength. Weeks later, Maya stood at an assembly listening to a speaker talk about courage. She smiled softly, knowing courage did not always look dramatic. Sometimes it was a calm voice in a loud room. Sometimes it was staying seated when told you did not belong. She felt proud of who she was becoming. Not because of what she faced, but because of how she handled it. That truth stayed with her. The airport gate existed now only as a memory. Yet its lesson traveled with many who witnessed it. Some passengers likely forgot the details. But moments like that leave marks on the heart. They remind people to question silence, to choose fairness even when it feels uncomfortable. Maya hoped more people would remember that, and act when it mattered. One evening Maya and David walked together under a quiet sky. They talked about dreams and future plans. Maya said she wanted to help others feel safe. David listened carefully and smiled. He told her she already had started. That kindness backed by courage could change rooms. Even without badges or titles. She held onto those words. Maya went to bed that night feeling peaceful. The world was still imperfect and sometimes unfair. But she knew her place in it. She belonged wherever she stood. No one could take that away. Not with words or demands. Her story was still being written, and she would write it with calm strength.